Hello again, everyone. It's great to be with you. Our gospel today is from the first chapter of Mark. Jesus and his disciples went to Capernaum, and when the Sabbath came, Jesus entered the synagogue and taught. They were astounded at his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority and not as the scribes. Just then, there was in their synagogue a man with an unclean spirit, and he cried out, "What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." But Jesus rebuked him, saying, "Be silent and come out of him." And the unclean spirit, convulsing him and crying with a loud voice, came out of him. They were all amazed, and they kept on asking one another, "What is this? A new teaching with authority? He commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him." At once his fame began to spread throughout the surrounding region of Galilee. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Who is this man that shows up in the synagogue today? The one with the unclean spirit. He's loud, bordering on obnoxious. He interrupts. He draws our attention the way an unbathed, unkempt, mumbling, homeless person would catch our attention if he were to show up in the middle of the sanctuary. I would venture to guess that the man with the unclean spirit is, for many of us, the shocking and intriguing part of today's gospel. Ironically, he does not have that effect on the people in the synagogue. Their undivided attention is on Jesus. They are astounded by his presence and his teaching. It's like nothing they have ever heard before. He has authority. His words mean something. They are impactful. They make a difference. Even the man with the unclean spirit is shocked and intrigued by Jesus. "What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us?" Jesus is teaching in the synagogue. His authority fills not just the place, but each person there. And almost immediately, this man with an unclean spirit shows up. This is not a coincidence. The presence of Jesus, the man with a clean spirit, draws out the presence of the man with the unclean spirit, draws out his presence. Jesus has that effect on people. His authority and teaching reveal the truth about his listeners' lives. The one with the unclean spirit is an image, a snapshot of what the lives of those in the synagogue look like. His uncleanliness is not about personal hygiene, immorality, or even being bad. Instead, his presence in their synagogue describes the disease of their soul, their fragmented lives, and the many voices within them. And in looking at him, they see themselves, and they are astounded by the contrast between themselves and Jesus, the one who has a clean spirit. What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? He senses the distance between his life and Christ's life. His words betray his isolation. It's not, however, just about him. He speaks not only for himself, but for all those present in the synagogue that day. He represents everyone who has ever experienced the brokenness of life. He is the spokesperson for all who feel disconnected from themselves, others, or God. He represents the human condition. Behind his question is, I believe, the unspoken longing and hope that Jesus would say, "Everything, I have everything to do with you." Those are the words that can begin to put his life back together. We're not so different. Each one of us also longs for that answer because we too know the separation and brokenness of our own lives. We've lived in isolation. We have been trapped in grief. We have carried the burden of guilt. The truth of those situations often reveals itself in the many personas we wear. At some level, we all project various personas or images of how we want others to see us, and how we want to see ourselves. Sometimes it's as simple as and seemingly silly as saying, I can't go to the grocery store looking like this. I have no makeup on and my hair is a mess. Or we smile and say, yes, everything is fine, and quickly change the subject when the truth is we are barely hanging on by a thread and not so sure that we'll make it through the rest of the day. Like the smiley face on a stick in the Rexulti commercial. I'm fine, I'm not. We don't want our life to be seen in its unmade condition. We use our personas as masks to hide the truth of what our life is like and who we really are. The tragedy is that they also hide who we might become. It seems that those masks often arise from the many voices that live within us. They are the voices of condemnation and guilt, grief, fear, anger, and judgment. They are the voices that keep us in constant comparison and competition with others. They are voices demanding perfectionism, asking, what have you done for me today? The voices are never satisfied. We are never able to do or be enough. Every one of them is a false voice, the voice of the unclean spirit that separates us from our authentic self, from all that we love and all who love us. Someone not so long ago asked me, why do I care so much about what other people say and think about me? I thought about today's gospel. I thought about false voices, an unclean spirit, separation, and a longing for acceptance and approval. All of those are contained in that question. They could just as easily have said, what have you to do with me, Jesus of Nazareth? They could be the man in today's gospel, but then so could you. So could I. We're such funny people. Deep down, we long for intimacy and authenticity, but the last thing we want is to be found out, to have someone see us for who we truly are and who we are not. So we put on a good front, hoping that will gain us approval, acceptance, and love. We say the right things, act the right way, dress and behave the right way, even believe the right way, and all the while we are creating ourselves in the image and likeness of the unclean spirit. The irony is that those fronts we put up, those personas, keep us from having the very thing we think they will gain for us. Things like intimacy, love, acceptance, healing, forgiveness, and authenticity. The personas offer no possibility for life to flourish and to be abundant. Still, we hold on to these false voices, voices that collectively ask, have you come to destroy us? That is exactly what Jesus has come for. He has come to destroy. He silences our false voices. He casts out all our personas and makes us people with clean spirits. He has everything to do with us. He stands before us as the mirror image of who we can become. There is no aspect of our life about which he is not concerned. He calls us into our true self, the one made in the image and likeness of God. He calls us back into the beauty and wholeness of our original creation. Today's gospel is as much about calling forth as it is about casting out. They are two sides of the same coin. The true voice and the true images are always present. That's why the man with the unclean spirit can cry out, I know who you are, the Holy One of God. He speaks from a deep place of knowing. His recognition of Jesus is at a profound level of recognition of himself and his own holiness. For every voice that denies that and leaves us crying, what have you to do with us, Jesus? Jesus says, shh, be quiet. It's not who you are. You are mine, and I have everything to do with you. Listen to that voice, and you too will be astounded at what can become of your life. And all God's blessed people say, Amen.